May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Puba of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths crossed his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. Today, we have a guest, but not a guest that I interviewed and you're going to hear their voice. I'm going to read from Mary Quagliata's Cuke page. But first, our pause to meditate. So when you hear the bell, hit pause. And when you've had enough, hit unpause. And we'll be here to hit the bell to end the meditation. Mary Quagliata is a potter and a video artist. She was early in Zen Center. She was married to Robert Quagliata, but way back then, the stained glass artist. Here on her page on Cuke.com, if you want to see it, just go to the site search box and write Quagliata, or you can go to the drop down for people and hit names, and then she'll be one of the 500 people listed there. And it's alphabetical, so it will be in the queues, Mary Quagliata. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. I'm just going to read from the page, and then we'll go, the last thing I'll do will be on Suzuki Roshi by Mary. She's got a gallery for her art. She's got a Vimeo page for her videos. So I have here, Mary was an early student of Shunryu Suzuki. I always thought of her as a potter, but she's more of a painter in videography in recent years, decades. She lives in San Miguel de Allende, or lived there for years. Yeah, I think she's in Oakland now. Mary was living for a year at Genjoji, Sonoma Mountain Zen Center, a ridge over from John Terrence Barn, where I was living. We visited some during that time around 2010. We did a nice interview, which I didn't transcribe and upload into Cuke right away. Big mistake, because I haven't been able to find it, and I spent hours several times in 2011, 12, and 13 looking in files and notes. I can't get her to redo it either. It really bothers me. Yes, I mean, I wrote that years ago, and it still bothers me. It's like one of those things I go, oh, why did I do that? I'd lost a couple of others, but, through the years, but those people redid them, but she wouldn't do that. And it was good. It was nice. I will always feel bad about that. It's just the way it is. Mary had previously sent the memories of Suzuki, so I've got that. And she has put a lot up on the web, so we can enjoy all that. And here I got this from a site of hers. I was born in California and live in San Miguel de Allende. I think that's in the past. And have for she lived there. At the time of writing this, she lived there for 25 years. I attended the San Francisco Art Institute, studying with Elmer Bischoff and Jim Weeks. I became interested in Zen Buddhism in high school and was fortunate to be able to practice with Shunryu Suzuki and Dainin Katagiri in the 60s and 70s in San Francisco. I like to think that a Buddhist sensibility infuses my painting. Within the last 15 years, I've begun to travel after volunteering in places such as India and Laos, where the education for girls and women leaves much to be desired. I've helped with art teaching and the making of videos to assist in bringing attention to the necessity for women's primary and secondary education globally. Mariander art. I paint from my imagination themes and ideas that occur to me. I paint a series of 5 or 6 canvases in a row that relate to a single idea. Often the idea is symbolic of something very large, something that I cannot grasp with reason, but sometimes the idea might be a simple one, very familiar in real everyday life. As with expressionism, I try to achieve the feeling of beauty by using exaggerated or distorted form, color, and line. Currently, I favor a composition that is rather flat, lacking scientific perspective. I think there's a lot more to say with expressionism, more to comment on in that fertile field, stretching from Matisse, Picasso, Nolde, etc., to what came to be called abstract expressionism. And that's from MaryQuagliataGallery.org bio. God, I don't know when that was written. I think that was probably written 10 years ago. Okay, so Mary on Shunryu Suzuki. When I first met him, Suzuki Roshi had already gone beyond Buddhism. He didn't need it anymore, but was devoted to it, loved it the way one loves one's own body. It was his skillful means, a vehicle, his raft. He lived in the absolute within his relative self. Thus, to behold him was to perceive a single but entirely integrated presence, a subtle thing. However, no shouting nor drama, but a delicate, soft persona, an old lady's mind in a brown robe, but concealing a clear, sharp power. I was a painting student at the San Francisco Art Institute when I first met him. Rob Gove invited him, begged probably, to come and speak. Rob and I had talked Zen over coffee, so he knew of my interest. I'd begun reading about Zen in high school, where I'd found 5 books about Buddhism in the Stockton Library, including the Blythe haiku translations, which were very beautiful. Roshi was to speak at about 4 in the afternoon, and I was looking forward to it. I hung around especially after I'd closed the cafeteria. I ran the school cafeteria in those days. But I didn't expect much. My heroes were Piero della Francesca and Pierre Bonnard, great painters who taught me and still do. I had no preconceptions about what a Zen teacher might be like, or maybe I expected some macho guy. I'd worked with plenty of those on the school teaching staff. I wasn't shopping for a Zen teacher. After all, I was a painter and committed to it. So I entered the smoky cavern where the talk's to be. Well, we all smoked. So imagine what the air's like. It's a typical scenic, paint-smeared clothing and filthy hands, legs dangling over the backs of chairs, everyone yakking, joking. Maybe 20 or 30 people come to the talk. Rob leads in the shuffling. Roshi and things quiet down a bit, but we still smoke. Suzuki isn't smiling, really, not trying to make any kind of impression at all, certainly making no judgments about his audience. And he begins his talk, a basic introduction to Buddhism, the 4 Noble Truths, and the Eightfold Path, beginner stuff. You have to be very quiet to hear anything because he doesn't raise his voice above a whisper. always in that small voice, so that you have to listen very hard, and everyone does. Then I am practicing zazen every morning, which in my case entailed getting up at 5 in the morning to catch the 30 Stockton to downtown, where I transferred to the Sutter bus, waiting in the dark in front of Mervin's in order to arrive at Sokoji in time for zazen. Why? Who he was showed clearly. I saw it. I'd never met anyone who had so little effect, who appeared so normal, who, although obviously tired and possibly disinterested in his own talk, was completely willing to live within his role. He accepted his life and his role in it without struggle and generously, thoroughly. His Zen contained neither fetish nor morality, was miles away from psychology. He gave us no hope and no hooks. He didn't care if we believed him. He offered nothing to believe in. He merely showed us some work to do. All of this was evident. One extrapolated it or just got it somehow. One could see it all or sense it in his bearing, seeing and hearing him one time only. His unadorned presence liberated others, passed on the same freedom, or one might get a glimpse. As I said, I wasn't looking for salvation and was taken quite by surprise. Here was a new kind of person, intrigued. I became his student for the next 6 years, until his death. During those years, I had many exchanges with him, but my original insight about him never changed, only deepened. I never felt I had to be close to him or get more of his attention than he cared to give, or that I needed more of it than the other students. It seemed to me that the first meeting contained the core for whatever was to follow in my life, that he had shown me myself, so to speak, so that I didn't need much more of him personally. Since that first smoky half hour, I was made aware of my completeness, an entity existing in profound emptiness. No, sharing it and exchanging it, being exchanged by it, merely by observing it. And he had done nothing but stand there in the smoke and utter a few words. The endless fine-tuning was to be up to me. He conveyed to us, with his presence, the core of his being and all emotion, yet he expressed almost no emotion then. His talk was very dry, yet his presence connected with infinity. That's the only way to say it, really. In the following years, I saw that over and over, and they were joyful years and fun. And they were joyful years and fun. So I wanted to share that with you. And I wanted to share my sadness that I lost that interview. I still think, someday maybe I'll get back to America and go through my archives and find it. I fear, though, that it was an audio that I intended to transcribe, forgot about, and was lost when, was not put in the normal place or something, I couldn't remember if I took notes or recorded, because I've done a lot of both. Anyway, I think what she's stated there is pretty complete. And so she's not lacking anything. And really, we aren't either. She just gave us plenty. So thank you, Mary Quagliata. This has been a Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Puba of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sanur, with Dogget Bandita, Feline Guchita, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.